Welcome everyone to the Health, Happiness and Planet podcast, where we explore different ways to boost our well-being, live a more fulfilling life and protect our planet. This podcast is sponsored by Wave Business Excellence Footprint, the digital training company that cares about your development and the well-being of this planet. You can find the courses for employees and managers under www.wave-bef.com. In today's episode, we are going to focus on becoming healthier and happier by connecting ourselves with nature. I am thrilled to introduce you to my fabulous guest, Kat Novotna from the Netherlands. She is a forest therapy guide, mentor in presence and self-care, and founder of EcoNIDRA and a company called Way Back Home. It is her passion and mission to help you reconnect with nature, with yourself, and with others through 6 main services. Number 1 is forest bathing sessions to relax and reconnect. This is called in Japanese Shirin Yoku. Number 2 is EcoNIDRA, which is deep relaxation to recharge your batteries to be able to find and follow your true passions. Number 3, nature-based one-to-one mentoring in presence to help you live less in your mind and more in the heartfelt sense of the present moment. Number 4, Certified EcoNIDRA Teacher Training if you would like to help others rest and reconnect with nature and with themselves. Number 5 is Train the Trainer if you have an organization or training where you would like to include the element of nature, connection, and nature-based self-care. And number 6 is Create a Training. If you have a nature and or a personal growth related project and you would like to have an online training to offer to the broad public, then Kat is the person who can help you here. Kat's work is based on reconnecting with nature, deep relaxation, slowing down, learning to listen to our body, to other people, and to the rest of nature. She teaches us to be more present in our daily life, to practice kindness, and to remember the relationship between humans and the planet. The techniques allow you to take a step back to be able to make positive changes in the way you work, live, and interact with others. They allow you to use the freed up vital energy to do what you were really born to do in this life. The sessions offered by Kat and her programs are popular among private persons, corporations, organizations, students, groups of friends and families alike. To be able to offer this work, she was lucky to be trained and certified by the world experts and great mentors in forest therapy, yoga nidra, counsel facilitation, as a teacher of presence, well-being, inspired by the nature consultant, holistic nutrition and life coach. Kat is convinced that well-rested, nature-connected humans can change the world. After today's conversation, I believe in this as well. I am thrilled to introduce you to this amazing guest, Kat. Hello, Kat, and welcome to the Health, Happiness and Planet podcast. It's so great to have you here.
Hi, Juan. Thank you. I'm really pleased to be here.
Thanks so much for your time. And one of the first things I love asking all my guests is, could you please tell us your story and how was your journey to come to where you are today? Because your background is so interesting and it's, I think, very unique. And not everybody knows about the things that you are doing. And that's why it's so interesting to know, how did you get there to where you are today?
Thank you for that question. Yeah, so I think my story, my journey actually started when I was a kid, like so many times that after a long journey, you come back to what you enjoyed when you were a kid. So when I was a kid, I was just sitting up in trees and just being with them, basically. I had my tree office and I was just like walking around, wandering through nature and sometimes drawing. These are my happiest memories, basically. And then as school happens, as work happens, then I kind of disconnected from nature. And there were 2 moments in my life that my body let me know that, hey, we gotta change direction. This is not a way to go. The first moment was when I was a translator. I was working very hard. I had my own business, a lot of clients, a lot of text to translate. And as you can imagine, translating is sitting behind a computer screen, many hours just typing and typing and typing and mind work and converting text to another language. And because I had so many clients, I would like work for 14, 16 hours a day. And I ignored my tiredness. I ignored my body, my back hurting and all that. And in the end, it was my eyes that told me to stop.
Yeah.
Like really stop. So I got inflammation in both eyes. And these inflammations became chronic and painful. So in the end, I couldn't keep my eyes open. I couldn't write. I couldn't read. I couldn't do anything. Nothing helped. So no medication would help. And this took about 2 years to heal. So I had to stop sitting behind a computer screen and type and translate. And it was then when I discovered that the only place that is not irritating for my eyes and where I feel well is the forest. And that's because of the forest air that was refreshing my eyes. That's because of the colors green and brown that happen to be the colors that are calming for our eyes. Because the sounds are actually calming your brain and your nervous system. So I calm down, I slow down, I relax my whole system. Then eventually, of course, I had to look a little bit where I was walking. And in the end, it wasn't painful anymore. And I also realized that looking into distance in a forest, there is like this depth that you do not have when you're looking at a computer screen. So all these aspects afterwards made me realize that the forest really healed me on several levels. It also helped me to change my lifestyle, my pace of living and working, my priorities. Yeah, that was a big realization.
Were you living near a forest, or did you have to travel a little bit to get there?
I had to travel. So I was living in a city and I had to travel a bit. Then eventually I moved closer and closer to the forest, of course, to be close to my friend. Yeah, I found a book about Shirin Yoku, the Japanese word for forest bathing. By coincidence, you could say. I just saw it shining in the bookstore, smiling at me. I read it within hours, and within hours I was subscribed for a forest therapy training. And yeah, the second day of that training, that happened in 2 weeks from that moment, I felt a huge, what I call love attack. And it was the realization that this was the most important thing in my life that I've done, that I've taken that training, and it still feels this way.
Amazing. And when that happened, how old were you at that point of time?
Good question. I think I was 32.
Wow. Yeah, so you did have some time where you were working that kind of really deep, intense work where your body really said someday, okay, I have to give some kind of sign to you that you're not doing something good for me as the body. And in your case, it was your eyes that really then had to take the toll from those hours and hours of work.
Yeah. Exactly.
And this course for forest bathing, is it something that you had to go and take the course, or you were able to do it online? How is it done?
At that point, it was in person, and currently there are many schools, and some of them are online, some of them are in person, some of them are a combination of both. So for me, it was in person in Slovenia. So I got to jump on a plane and go into Slovenian forests and see whom I will meet there. But like I said, there are many options nowadays. So you can do a hybrid training, an online training, combination.
Yeah, which is quite interesting if I think about, because forest bathing is about being in the forest, and then you're doing it online. It's like, I wonder if it's that effective as really being there with the trainer in a forest. Yeah. What would you say? Your preference would probably be more the non-online training version, probably, right?
Yeah, this is an interesting journey too. And thank you for the question, because before COVID, I could never have imagined that you can take or offer a training like that online. But during the pandemic and during the lockdowns, we actually discovered that it is possible, that you can do this remotely when people are joining from their own nature. So they are in nature and you are in nature, but we are connecting. So people in the training are actually practicing in their nearest nature, and that, of course, in a lockdown that could vary. So some people could go to the forest, Other people had to stay in their gardens. Other people had to be on their balcony or just looking out of the window. And we realized that it does work, and that's so amazing, because that's one of the big realizations, that it's not about the great outdoors and the magnificent beauty of remote places, but nature connection is happening here at my window in my nearest park or place in nature. And that is enough to have a very deep experience and a lot of relief.
That is amazing. Yeah, I haven't thought about it that way, but now that you explain it, it totally makes sense. Yeah, and probably the same thing happened with me in the past. I was also a trainer before, and I was giving a lot of courses to employees in companies, and I thought, well, this is the only way you can do it. And today I have a company where I'm doing it all in digital form. So I'm thinking, wow, it's really amazing what you can transfer in presential courses, but then you can also do it very effectively as well in an online world. I never thought that forest bathing was possible, but now definitely makes sense, because one can use the techniques depending where you are. And if you have the park next door, then you just go to the park next door and you can take part of that online course.
Exactly. And plus, it's also about how you do it, right? So if we record something online, or if we do something online when I'm talking from my head into your head, then you're going to be tired and your eyes may hurt and your back, and you're going to be saturated. But if you do experiential sessions, and if you focus on connection, and if you support people in creating those connections where they are, then it really can work.
Fantastic. And then from there, I think you established your own company, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Very good.
So
wow,
Way Back
amazing.
Home is my company.
Fantastic. And the first thing I would like to ask you in connection to forest bathing, because I'm sure not many people have heard about it, could you give us an overview? What does forest bathing mean and where does it come from?
Yeah, forest bathing is the literal translation of the Japanese word Shirin Yoku. And Shirin Yoku means forest bathing, but then not that you jump into a lake in the forest. You could, if it helps you to stay present. But it's not necessarily part of forest bathing. It's like sunbathing. It's an immersion in the forest environment, and it can be nature as well. It doesn't have to be a forest. So nature in general. Forest bathing, the term has been coined 40 years ago in the 80s. Where the Japanese moved from the more outdoor and agrarian economy to the indoor and tech-based economy. So it was quite a massive, big move from living a more natural lifestyle into sitting indoors, working behind the computers, long hours, a lot of stress, deadlines, what I just described in my own journey, basically.
Yeah.
But then it happened like on a big scale in the 80s. And so that's where Japanese doctors, medical doctors, saw that all of a sudden Japanese people got sick. And they got sick on the physical level, so things like diabetes, high cholesterol, all kinds of diseases, autoimmune diseases. Beginning there and then going to the mental health issues and depression, anxiety, panic attacks, and the whole package that we currently know, it has all its roots in stress, happened there quite abruptly, quite quickly. So from the ministry, they started a project, they started an experiment to send those city people into the forest. And they established forest therapy centers across the country with easy transportation to there. So there are like direct trains that can bring people from the city to the forest. And they trained guides, and they were measuring and still are measuring what happens to a human body, to a human being when you expose them to nature, when you spend time in nature and you are being slow. So it has these two components of being in nature and then also relaxing. So that's how the guides are trained, to help people to slow down, to get from the thinking mind into the senses, and through the sensory connection into the connection with the place, with the forest, with nature, and what happens. So it's the whole package that's happening there. That's the holistic way nature is helping us. that no pill can give you without side effects, that it really seems to regulate everything in the human body, from blood pressure to blood glucose to your mood and just how happy you feel in life. And there's a lot of scientific research since then, including the physiological data about all the things that improve, and mental health data, then even more subtle aspects that are not so easily measurable, like psychological health and emotional health and sense of well-being and sense of happiness in life. Yeah, the research is amazing. I could be talking about this for hours, so I'm going to keep it there. And
yeah, that is really, truly amazing. And if I think back how the culture in Japan is, people are really perfectionists when they do their work, and they want to do their work well. They want to have a good status in the company because perhaps their parents and grandparents were also working at the same company, so they also have to do a good job. And they don't have maybe the mentality that, okay, if this job doesn't work, I'll just go to another company and just work there. They really want to do a great job. And for that, they're putting themselves under a lot of pressure. And I've just so amazed how the government came up with such a good initiative to see how this is going to work if it does have a positive impact. I'm just speechless, and that's why when I heard about forest bathing the first time, I started testing it myself because I love testing everything that's out there to see if it's true. And I also did feel a lot of improvements in many things, especially when I am a long time working at a computer and I start feeling that after 2-3 hours that I've had now enough contact with the electronics, and I just feel like my gut is not very quiet. I feel that I need movement. So when I go out with my dog for a walk, I just start feeling that everything starts calming down, better breathing patterns, and not so shallow up here on the chest. And it just goes automatically. And I'm just thinking, well, actually that everything makes sense because we are nature. We are part of nature. Yeah, we are all in this planet together with all the other animals and beings out there. So for me, it just was like logical that we are feeling better in nature and not feeling so good when we are disconnected from nature.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just incredible, how much we are part of nature that we have actually no idea of, right? So we know, we sense that, we feel that, but at the same time, there are mechanisms that we just discover and that scientists just find out that are new to our mind, to our thinking mind, but they are there because, of course, we are animals. Of course, we are not better than the rest of nature. We are equal to all other beings in nature. And one thing that comes to mind is the story about phytoncides. I don't know if you've heard that term.
No.
So the trees have their own immune system. If a tree feels attacked or if feels threatened by a fungus, for example, then the tree will shower itself with phytoncides. And phytoncides are, if you translate it, these are plant killers. So this is part of the immune system of the tree to keep the tree healthy. And it will find the enemy, the fungus in this case, for example, and kill it so the tree remains healthy. And the fascinating thing about that is that when a human being is walking or spending time in that forest, we breathe in those phytoncides. What it does to our body, our own immune system, the natural killer cells in our immune system get triggered and they increase in amount and in activity, and they do exactly the same as what the phytoncides do for the tree. They find cells in our body that are damaged or stressed out or somehow not okay, and they remove them. So our immune system is connected to the immune system of the tree. So it's not only the oxygen thing, right, that we help each other. It goes deeper than that.
I haven't heard about that before, but it's very impactful and it definitely makes sense. And these are the things I think that more people should know about. How we all work in synchronicity with each other, with nature. There was one story I did hear many years ago that there was a person who had some kind of health issue. I'm not so sure what it was. But when he went to his herbal doctor, because he didn't believe too much in medicine, because for him, all of that had a lot of side effects. So he wanted to find a natural way of healing himself. And his doctor, it was not a real doctor, it was like a healer. And this person said that you do need a specific herb that you need to make a tea with. But we unfortunately don't get that in this country where we live. What happened was that this person told the person who was ill. But I have a experiment I would like you to do. I would like you to go to your garden and walk every day in your garden. And it could be that the earth is going to sense what is it that your body needs to heal. And then you will have new plants growing in your garden that you might be able to use for your healing. And that's what the person did. And a couple of weeks later, there were other types of plants growing that he did not see before. So he took those and he put it into his tea. He was drinking that and he slowly but surely got better. And that was something that was so impressive to see, that also you are so in contact with the earth, but the earth is in contact with you, similar to what you were just saying right now. Mother Earth is giving us all we need in order to be healthy and thriving.
Yeah, and it's not just a one-way relationship as we tend to think, that we like nature, that we like our gardens, right? It's not just that, it's mutual. The earth is listening and it's perceiving. The trees and the animals are sentient beings. So there's a lot of medicine for the humankind to just embrace that we are in a relationship with nature, with the planet, with the other beings, with the plants in your garden.
Amazing. One of the things that I was experimenting with my wife was to be more frequently barefoot in nature. And what we discovered after a couple of weeks, that our body is really asking for it. So we feel like that need for going out there, because before we never had that kind of sensation. It was just like, okay, there's the park, but we did not have that calling to go there. Yeah. And now it's like, oof, we cannot go by a park without getting into the park and really stepping with our bare feet in the nature, because it's just like our body is really asking us for it. Please give it to us. We need that sensation. We need that energy.
Yeah, I completely understand that. And it's the moment that I put off my shoes and start walking on the grass or in the forest, I'm constantly happy. I feel blissful. I feel, I forget about whatever was happening that day, whatever my problems are. I'm just happy.
And you're totally in the present moment.
Yeah, and it is addictive. Yeah. So there's a lot of research about that too, right? So what's actually happening, but maybe it's enough to notice that it makes you happy and that you crave more of that.
That's right. And sometimes if people ask me about it, I just tell them, well, it would be good if you just experiment yourself. I don't want to be pushing you to do certain things that you might feel that it's maybe uncomfortable. So just try it out. And once you have tried it out, then you can decide for yourself, is your body really resonating with that? Do you feel you want to try it again the next day? Yes or no? And then go on from there. Yeah. And most people then, they just don't feel so pushed or so, I would say, under pressure from my side to tell them, hey, you got to try it out. You got to go do it. So they just say, okay, I'm just going to try it once and then I can decide from there on. And most of the time they always go back, and then a couple of weeks later, they say, oh, that was so great. Yeah,
you're just planting seeds. It doesn't make sense to push people or to try to convince anyone.
That's right. And as you are a certified forest bathing guide, is there a difference in certification levels, or is there just that one certification level?
So the schools on forest bathing or forest therapy have their different curriculum. There are different schools in the world. There is no accreditation system that is worldwide yet. So it really depends on each school how they are dividing it. So I know schools that are simply training guides, and then the duration of the training varies. It could be a few months, it can be a half year. And then in certain schools, they divide it into, for example, practitioner first, and then you continue to master and these kind of things. So there is no worldwide agreement about that. It really depends on the school.
Okay. And from your workshops that you have done with your clients, what is the main thing that usually pops up from the feedback that they give to you? What are the usual stories that you hear quite often?
It's a variety, really, because nature always has the thing for you that you need at the moment. So it depends on the day, it depends on the person. So what amazes me is this variety, that it can be relaxation and sharing that one day, and the other day it can be a lot of emotion and kind of processing something that that person had to process. Another day it could be something else. So it really varies. But if there's like a line in all those stories, I would say the feeling of connection and being part of something bigger. and relaxation, definitely.
Okay.
And many people actually receive a lot of insights from nature, because once you give your brain this break or allow it to happen, then you can actually start listening to nature more.
Yeah.
And we don't know how this happens. So if it's your brain producing this, if it's your imagination, or if really the tree gave you this insight. So we don't know. It's part magic, part science, and maybe we'll find out later. But many people have quite big insights also about their way of life, their pace of living, their relationships, how much space they need in life, and quite major changes sometimes.
Wow, that's amazing. I did read a book not long ago. It was about a lady who came from Germany, and she was able to heal her past traumas by being closer to trees. So she would then feel a specific attraction to certain trees, and she would then just put her hands around the tree or step with her bare feet on the roots of the tree. And she would then just close her eyes. And even though she would be there maybe 20, 30 minutes standing there, but she would just feel as if she was just there for a couple of seconds. And she could feel how the tree would just communicate with her. And within a couple of years, she was able to pass through those various traumas that she had. And it was such a impactful story. It really opened my eyes more towards that there's so many things out there that we still have to learn about nature and how we are in sync, or unfortunately many of us not in sync with nature. And I think the further you distance yourself from nature, the more you're going towards illness and all those chronic issues that I see today that a lot of people have when they cannot sleep well, that they have joint pain, that they are nervous, high blood pressure. All of these things is because they have divorced themselves from that connection that they have with nature. And then if they go closer to it, a lot of these things start subsiding.
Absolutely. And there are many of these stories, and some people don't dare to share them because they are kind of hesitating if the world will find them crazy. And I've also seen more and more people who do dare to share them, who kind of step out and say, call me a tree hugger, but I like that. Or I do talk to my plants, call me crazy, but we... it's definitely there, and it's definitely becoming more conscious also for many people.
Is there anything that one could do wrong when you do forest bathing?
I think the only thing that can go wrong, or that is wrong, is to think that you are doing it wrong. Because there is no right or wrong way of how you can do forest bathing. And this pressure or this desire to do it in a good way and to follow the instructions and to not be in your thinking mind, that just creates pressure and it kind of disconnects you. So you kind of sabotage yourself with that.
That's right.
Yeah.
So do not overcomplicate things.
No, you're always doing it right. And it's okay if you still have thoughts in your mind, because, we have them simply. It's a process. People who are doing it regularly are more aware of that process. So you're kind of more in state to, more able to recognize those thoughts and know that you are thinking and that you are not your thoughts, basically. And you are able to bring yourself into your body. So to ground yourself, to bring yourself back to your body.
Okay. In case they do not have a forest nearby, would that also work if they go to the park, or if they would go to a beach or to anywhere else that is just, I would say, nature, but not precisely a forest? Would that also be valuable?
Absolutely. Yeah. So a beach, garden, even your balcony with some plants, any natural place is fine. And even just in the middle of a city, if there are a couple of trees, or even if there are no trees, but you can look at the skies and watch the clouds and feel the wind on your face. That's all nature, right? Yeah.
Very nice. Have you experienced that some of your clients, they don't have so much exposure to nature because they are still very accustomed living in their urban life, and as soon as they get exposed to nature, they feel a little bit scared because they think, there might be ticks, there might be spiders, centipedes, worms and bugs and ants, all these kind of things that come up into their mind, and they are like all tense. And how do you do to make them feel more comfortable in their new surroundings?
Yeah. Yeah, one thing is to acknowledge that this is there, that people do have these fears, that it's just something that they came with. And sometimes these are bugs or spiders or what you just mentioned. And sometimes it's just, especially for women, that you are simply afraid to go to the forest because there have been so many stories about forests and being dangerous and so on. So many people are carrying something like that. And yet, if they decide to do forest bathing and to try that out, there is the openness to explore that a little. And one thing that seems to work in cases, for example, when people are afraid of ticks, it seems to be working when referring to the ticks, like mentioning them. You include them into the whole ecosystem of the forest, and you also mention why they are good or why they are part of the whole story, which, for example, for ticks is that they are food for birds. So birds are feeding on ticks and they are part of the ecosystem. So they're not only those monsters that jump on you and eat you alive and make you very sick, but they're really part of the whole picture.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the topics I hear the most when I am out there in nature and I don't have my shoes on. That a lot of people are like, oh, aren't you scared of those bugs and ticks? But I think if you know that they're there and you are cautious, that you, when you get home, that you're just checking yourself, that you don't have anything stuck on your skin, then it should be fine. I mean, I haven't so far, in the 5 years that I've been very often now in nature compared to the past, I've never experienced any of that, even though I still sometimes just check myself and also my dog, but so far so good. So sometimes it's like the perceived danger could be much, much higher than the real danger.
Absolutely. And that's a good lesson for life. The things that we fear, the fear is just in your head usually. Thank you for mentioning your journey with that, because I'm somebody who ticks love me. So when I'm in the forest, I come back and I have 8 ticks on me. And that's actually another point of the journey that I mentioned before. I got Lyme disease. It's a long story, but basically I'm symptom free right now, so I'm lucky. But the thing that helped me to heal is, again, nature, and in this case in combination with the Yoga Nidra. So EcoNidra, the practice, was another step in that evolution, in that process. That started with the Lyme disease.
Wow. Yeah, and I think a lot of those moments in life, that's where usually your life just changes towards a different direction, and then you start going down another rabbit hole where you never thought you would go there before, but then it just opened again a new world. One of the things that also changed the life for my wife and myself was because she was diagnosed with Hashimoto, with underfunction in the thyroid gland. And that was the moment that really changed the direction of how we're going to live our life, because the doctor told her, you're going to take this hormone. It's supposed to just regulate the hormones from your thyroid, and then you're good to go. So she asked him, well, how long do I need to take this hormone? And he said, well, for the rest of your life. And she was like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm not taking something for the rest of my life that I don't even know, what kind of side effects that has. So that's where she started doing some research about thyroid. And then from there, she went to another book. And then suddenly we went to so many different topics about health that we just changed our way of living 180 degrees. And we even changed our job. We changed the country, and we're doing now something totally different in a different country. And it all because of that one moment, just because someone says you need to do this now for the rest of your life. And you're a slave to that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's empowering to hear that. And most of the breakthroughs and claiming your power back and having great transformation starts with some kind of suffering. And often it's the body. It could also be the mind. Your story that you just shared. In my case, my eyes, and then my chronic fatigue that was connected with the Lyme disease started something amazing, something that I can share with others and I could have never imagined before.
So now if we go more to that direction, you founded then the company Way Back Home as well as EcoNIDRA. Could you tell us more about that?
So Way Back Home is my personal company. So that's like an umbrella name of coming back to yourself and back to nature, back to the essence that we are. So it's my forest bathing sessions and EcoNidra and the mentoring that I offer to people to learn to live more in the now and from self-care rather than exploiting yourself to give to others and to follow your mission. So Way Back Home is kind of all of that together. And EcoNIDRA is specifically for the practice of EcoNIDRA that I created, that I found, which is a combination of forest bathing and yoga nidra together in a blend, in a marriage of those two.
That sounds really good. And that's something that I, again, experienced since I started yoga. It also was a life-changing experience. And now I can see, putting those two powers together, it's, wow.
Yeah, and what inspired me were two things: the Lyme disease, the bacteria, and dragonflies in nature. Yeah, it's a very powerful tool to connect those two. And it's also a training for EcoNIDRA teachers in the world. So there are many, I call them my dragonflies. And there are many dragonflies in the world that are actually providing sessions online, offline, indoors, outdoors, and helping people reset their nervous system and reconnect with nature, with themselves.
Amazing. So therefore, you are also like a mentor in presence and self-care, I think. That's how you have it on your profile. And could you explain us what kind of clients usually come to you when they say, I need help in specific areas in my life? What is usually where you can give them an assisting hand?
Mm-hmm. Well, the moment that most people reach out for mentoring or that they kind of accept a mentor in their life is usually a moment of transition, usually a difficult situation of big changes, and these could be on all levels. It can be changing jobs, it could be a relationship change, it could be really just redefining yourself in some area of your life or moving to other places. And all these changes bring up a lot, and they bring up a lot of thoughts in our heads, and we make things for ourselves quite complicated by overthinking and just pondering, and it becomes a very dysfunctional pattern that we think too much and we live in our heads instead of in the present moment. So it's kind of twofold. One thing is being a guide during that transition in somebody's life. And the second part is also, what is self-care for you? Because self-care is a word that many people talk about it and many people associate it with some practices, but self-care is actually what you do today, and it can be very different than what you needed yesterday and what you're going to need tomorrow. And it can be different for me than it is for you. So it's really tuning into your body, reconnecting to your body to listen to what self-care you actually need and how you can make your cup full again and how you can live in the now rather than in your mind.
Wow. I think that there are many people who spend a lot of their energy thinking about the past, of the things that they could have done or that they should have done, and I should have done this, should have done that. And then when they try to be more in the present, then they start thinking, what am I going to be doing in an hour from now? I still got to send those emails. I got to still do this. I got to call that person. So then suddenly they're not actually really in the present, because now they're thinking of the future. And so either they're thinking about past experiences or they're thinking of what they have to do. But it's like, okay, but what about right now? That's where your energy is going to be. You need to really be putting your energy to right now. And I think that's what a lot of people have difficulty with. And I mean, when I read about that and I started practicing it myself, somehow I felt it was like training my dog. When I was training my dog to walk and to stay next to me, it's like my thoughts. My thoughts were trying to get ahead. And I'm like, no, stop. You got to get back here where I am. And then I start thinking about the past. No, stop. I got to again come back to where I am right now. And that is so hard. But with practice, you then, just like your dog will learn it, and your mind will also hopefully learn it quickly.
Absolutely, yeah. So there are a lot of culprits in both, like thinking about the past and beating yourself up for what you should have done or what you said or did. There are so many people who actually always live for the next moment. Like, I'm doing this so that I can the next thing, right? So you completely miss your life, basically, because you're always in one of those places and they're both just in your head and they are not really the life that is unfolding right now. And the practice is indeed, so you start with like little moments of presence, like allowing yourself, like, playful experiment with your own mind. Like, can I be present for just 2 seconds, right? Can I just listen to what you're saying without preparing what I'm going to say next, without judging you for, without comparing myself with you, without thinking about what I'm gonna do after this. So it's such a game. It's quite an enjoyable game, actually.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of people might hear this and say, yeah, in theory, it makes sense. But then to put it really into practice and to really say, okay, I'm going to now really dedicate some time and to start practicing this. That's, I think, where sometimes people just do not get to that point. Now they just say, yeah, it makes sense. And then maybe the next day they forget about it. And then maybe half a year later, they say, oh, yeah, I did hear about that. I'm going to do it someday. And then like this, the time goes by and you're still in your same thinking patterns and your same life. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's where nature can come in. And that's where you have some pretty easy entrances to that, so that it doesn't stick in your head as a theory that you like, that you resonate with, but that you're not living, and to really start living it.
Yeah, so powerful. And to give the listeners an idea of how does that work with forest bathing, how does it look like? Do they then just go with the guide into the forest? Are they all silent, or does the guide explain them certain things? How can one somehow picture what is happening in such a experience?
Mm-hmm. So guides are, of course, different people. They have their different ways of approaching it. But in general, as a forest bathing or forest therapy guide, you are trained to step out. You are offering space, so you're not explaining anything. You're not giving any botanical information. You are simply helping people to slow down and helping people to come into their senses so that they can connect to nature. And whatever is going to happen then is between the person and the forest or nature. It's not your responsibility as a guide. So the guide has very intense training working with themselves to step out of that process and to not to try to impose anything or create anything or achieve anything, but to really give it space to happen between the person and the forest. And of course, there is a sequence to that. So it starts with an introduction where you simply meet your guide and meet the place and hear a little bit about the character of what's going to happen. Especially about the fact that it's all invitational. So that's an important part of forest bathing, that it's all invitational. Nothing is mandatory. You simply listen to your body and see what you want to do, if you're going to change the invitation to something else. So these are no exercises. It's an invitation. And then there's a sequence where the guide has a specific way to help people come into the embodied present moment, into the senses. And after that, a series of invitations that is always typical. It changes per day, so it's in tune with the forest, what invitations come up. And you wrap it up with a tea ceremony, typically under the trees, and drinking tea from plants that you harvest in the forest.
Yeah. Wow. I haven't had any experience yet in forest bathing, but that sounds very calming and relaxing. Just imagining how that goes, especially that you're not forced to do anything you do not want to do. It's an invitation, and you can see, what does my body now feel like doing? And this is usually done in a group, I think, right? With other people as well?
Yeah, so usually a group, but it could also be a one-on-one. It depends. In a group, in between the invitations, you come together and you have the opportunity to share about what you are noticing. And again, it's an invitation. So when people don't have the words or they don't feel like talking, they're perfectly welcome to share in silence. Or, so if even that is invitational and is part of that process.
And usually how long does it take? If I think about my yogi teacher, we were always very early at the yoga mat, but is it similar in forest bathing that one has to be super early in the morning, or can it be, let's say, like normal hours, or how is usually the schedule?
Yeah, that's the beauty of nature, that it's beautiful and inspiring at any time of the day, even at night.
Yeah.
So we guides love to do all kinds of walks in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, at night. And it usually takes about 3 hours or 2 to 3 hours to have a full experience. And then sometimes, for example, for corporate groups, or if it's like taster of forest bathing, the session can be shorter because you can already experience some of the benefits when it's shorter. But the full experience is about 2.5 to 3 hours at any time of the day.
I was never in a forest in the dark so far. When I was a kid, I was probably too scared to be in the dark in the forest. And if I think about it, I was like, wow, that could be spooky. But if I think about it today, I'm thinking, interesting thought. I did not know that that was even possible
Yeah.
because so many people are scared of being in the dark. There's no lights, there's no lampposts, like in the streets in the city.
Yeah.
So you have all these noises and you're thinking, okay, what was that? And what am I going to step on? Because I cannot see the path 100%. So that must be pretty exciting experience.
Yeah. These kind of things are the moments where you feel alive. When you try something like that, in forest therapy, we call it the encounters with wholeness, that you intensely feel that you're alive, that you live. Yeah, it's difficult to describe, but yeah. A night walk, a moon walk, moon forest therapy walk could be an experience like that. Another type is when it's pouring with rain, and that surprises people sometimes, but it can be a very sensory and very freeing experience to do a session when it's raining.
Wow. I think I need to try that someday. Yeah, that is so amazing, because usually people today are just doing sometimes the opposite of what really they should be doing. Yeah, if they think, oh, it's raining, we're going to get all protected, let's go indoors, let's go inside of the house. And oh, it's dark, let's get again inside of the house because it's dangerous if it's dark and we do not know what's out there. And I think a lot of things, like just now you said about the moonwalking at night, and then I'm just thinking of when I was a kid watching all these werewolf movies, and I'm thinking, no way I'm going to go out there in the dark, in the forest, and it's all because the subconscious, you have certain things that were pre-programmed in you, and actually if I wouldn't have seen those scary movies, then I wouldn't have any problem of just going out there and doing that moonwalk in the forest. Okay, perfect. You have triggered a couple new ideas for me and probably to the listeners as well.
Nice. I hope that they can send pictures of themselves.
Yeah. Well, I have two final questions. One of them is about something that I've also heard about before, and I just wanted to hear your experience on that. Is it true that trees can communicate with each other?
Yeah, that's part of the research that we already know. It's true. They do communicate with each other. There's a whole web underground. So they do communicate with their roots. They do support each other. There are whole families and friendships and support systems for any tree that is suffering, that has not enough nutrients, but also informing each other about danger. So I think there was a part of that research is actually that in Africa, when there's a tree and the leaves of the tree are being eaten by an animal, then all of a sudden the same species of that tree, a little bit farther away, the leaves turn bitter, so that they protective mechanisms. So they do communicate through the air as well. They have many ways of communication.
I'm so more in love with nature right now. Yeah, it all makes sense. It's all living organisms. I've seen a study, I think it was also from Japan, about energy waves, and they have 2 glasses of water or petri dish with water, and then they have, like, for example, negative words, and on the other one you have very comforting and positive words like happiness, gratefulness, and so forth. And then later they were analyzing under the microscope, how does that water look? And the water that had those negative words on it, it looked like if it was stale water, and the other one that had all these encouraging words, that water had very nice looking crystals under the microscope. And I was just thinking, wow, that's so amazing, because everything around us is just energy. Our body is 70-80% liquids, and all of the organisms, the fruits, everything is a high degree of liquid. So of course all of these energy waves, they go through it, and that's why I think it's very, very important we as people be careful how we speak, and we have to be very I would say vigilant on the word selection that we choose. If we are in business or if we are in a relationship, are we using a lot of negative type of words that have a lower frequency, I would say, or are we using encouraging words that are always filled with joy and love and gratefulness? Yeah, and if you can surround yourself with more of these positive vibes, then definitely more good things will be attracted to you.
Absolutely. So yeah, you said it all. And actually one of the effects that people report after practices like forest bathing or EcoNIDRA is that their relationships improve, because you feel more connected to everything what is. And so you have this kindfulness in you. You cultivated a gentleness in yourself from that connection, from that experience. Another fascinating research about that is about the hormone oxytocin, the cuddle hormone, the hormone of love. and can actually save the world, because people who do feel that, and oxytocin is one of the things that's happening in the human body when you feel connected to nature, to other beings. So forest bathing also stimulates that. If we feel that way, we are probably not going to start a war. We are probably not going to go fighting. We are simply going to support that loving, acceptance, embracing approach to life and everyone.
So true. So if I would be the president of a country, then I would probably put all my politicians to do these nature retreats frequently so that they can all make better decisions in their career as a politician.
Absolutely. Feeling more connected to the world, but also to yourself. That's one of the things that I've experienced, and so many things. Once you connect deeply to nature, then not only you learn to listen to your own body and its signals more, but you also learn to listen to your heart. And at some point, you would never do things that do not resonate with your feeling. So you are going to start working a way that resonates with you. You are going to have nicer relationships and so on and so on. And it all starts with reconnecting with nature.
Yeah, and I think you definitely get the sensitivity to know how to recognize this intuition that you have towards what are the things that you get drawn towards, which make sense, and the things that do not make sense. Somehow, I think probably many people at the moment get numb, when you disconnect from nature. And I think when you do the opposite, when you connect yourself, then you can somehow get in tune again with those senses. Yeah. As you just mentioned right now, you can really know intuitively what is the right thing to do.
Yeah, we have many more senses than we think. There are subtle senses that we cannot even name or perceive, or that we are not using really on a daily basis, but they are there. And they can be cultivated, and they can be awakened, and they help you to take decisions.
This was such an amazing conversation, and the time went by so fast. And therefore, I got my final question for you, and that is, how can our listeners find you, and what are the services that you can offer for them?
Thank you for that question. So what I can offer, what my heart's desire is to offer, is forest bathing, and this can be locally here in the Netherlands, but I also do remotely guided sessions where you join from your own nature and receive the invitations from the guide. EcoNIDRA sessions, EcoNIDRA Teacher Training, so for anyone who feels called to spread this practice into the world and help people reconnect, can become a Certified EcoNIDRA Teacher, and mentoring. So if you would like to come from the thinking mind into the body and into nature more often, and learn how to take care of yourself really in a way that is sustainable for you and that supports your well-being and your mission, then one-on-one mentoring is best for that, because then we can really work on your embodiment and in connection with your story. And where people find me, so the umbrella of Way Back Home is waybackhome.info. And if you're specifically interested in EcoNIDRA, then it's econidra.com.
Excellent. So I will take those links. I'll be putting it into the show notes. So in case somebody is at the moment driving or doing anything that they cannot take notes, I will have it there. And final question before we close for today. How would you define happiness? Happiness is when you are free of thoughts for a moment. That's how I define happiness. Wow. When you're able to have the capacity to notice the small things in life and to appreciate them, when your mind is not always cluttered by other stuff. That sounds fantastic. Thank you so much, Kat. It was so nice to have you here for this interview. I think this will probably not be our final episode. Maybe in the future again, we could do one more. And this was really great. Thank you for your input.
Thank you so much. I love that. I love the way that you're doing these interviews. Thank you so much for spreading this into the world.
Thanks, Kat. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This was an amazing conversation. I hope this episode with Kat has made you think more about how much time you personally spend in nature. Before doing anything else right now, I encourage you to reflect on what was discussed today and think about how much quality time you spend in nature by yourself or with your family and friends. There are many studies that show that the more we disconnect ourselves from nature, the more we increase the risk of being ill. While on the other side, the more we are regularly connected to nature, the healthier, more energized, and vibrant we are. At the end, we are nature, and we only thrive with nature. In the show notes, you will find all the links on where to find Kat and her services. This podcast was sponsored by Wave Business Excellence Footprint, a digital training company that cares about your career development, your personal development, and the well-being of this planet we call home. On the website www.wave-bef.com, you will find a total of 22 courses. 7 of those are designed for managers and 15 courses are designed for employees who strive to become the leaders of tomorrow. I value your feedback and I would love to hear from you. Please rate, subscribe, and share this episode with those whom you think will profit from this information. Your support means the world to me and it motivates me to keep producing content that adds value to your life. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Big hugs, everyone.